Hello and welcome back. Right, mistakes were made yesterday. I timed the fuel pump drive gear up at top dead centre, and as the kind man put in the comments, it needs to be timed up at 24 degrees before top dead centre, which is on this little plate here. You just mark the little notch in the pulley with 24 degrees. I wanted to put the pistons in yesterday, but I had no feeler gauges, so I couldn't gap the piston rings, which kind of threw me off what I was doing. But I'm going to have to retime that up. You still put the gear in with the notch at 5 o'clock, but you want the engine at 24 degrees before top dead centre, not at top dead centre. I'm going to ignore that for the minute anyway, because I want to get my pistons in. I've got my feeler gauges now. Amazon brought them very late last night. And basically, we're going to gap our piston rings. Super easy to do, although a bit laborious. You want to get your piston ring in the bore. You can use a piston to keep it square. And then you get your gap that the manual states. This is the last compression ring, or oil control ring, and this wants a gap of 008, which is what we've got, 008. And let me bring you in and show you without dropping the phone on the floor. Right, there is the piston ring in the groove. Here is our feeler gauge, and all we need to do, hang on, I'll get the feeler gauge in the gap first. There is our feeler gauge. There is our feeler gauge in the gap. So that little gap in the piston ring is bang on. That is the minimum. We can go 008 to 013. I've kept them all minimal. They open up as the rings wear over time. You've got to do all the rings. There is 5 rings on each piston, 4 pistons. So you've got to do this 20 times. It's quite dull, but a very necessary step. Now, the piston goes in that way with the little divots in the top of the piston facing away from your push rods. I'm going to quickly check that. After yesterday's error, I'm sure it is. In fact, I know it is. I'm not going to check. Right, your piston rings, obviously they've all got a gap in them. You want to make sure that, like, if all your gaps are lined up, that's no good. I like to keep the gaps on these to the sides rather than that way, because the piston travels like that. Its forces tend to be going that way and that way. I like to keep the gaps at the side of that. I don't know what anyone else's thinking is on that, but that is how I like to do it. And then I'll alternate the gaps. So basically none of the gaps line up. Something like so. Right, now we need a piston ring compressor. Okay, here is my piston ring compressor. Which I'm going to give a clean off. What I'll do, I'll fit one piston, and then I'll fill me gap in one ring. The rest I will do off camera, because I mean, it's one of those jobs, it's quite satisfying, but it's also very dull. All this does is it squeezes all the rings into the piston so you can get it in the engine. I should really use a bit of engine oil, really. Let me get a bit of oil. That was rather too much, but it'll work. Okay, I'm not entirely happy with how this has squeezed all the rings in. It might be good. Right, if you've got this right, this piston won't put up any resistance to going in this hole. Just hit a ring, that. But we are one ring in. And that is our piston in the bore. One in. Right, now we'll put the end cap on the bearing. Get our bearing cap. Slide our main bearing in there, sorry, big end bearing. Bit of goop. Right, actually, before I go any further, I've got new lock tabs for the main bearings, for the big end bearings rather. Ratchet. Nine sixteenths. Okay, see what this piston's like. Seems good. We'll torque all of these up and the main bearing caps before we're done. Okay, spin that back over, which we're going to go that way. Give that a wipe. And there we have our first piston installed. Beautiful. There is a clearance for the skirt in the bottom of the bore as well. Piston to bore clearance at bottom of skirt. I'm not going to check that. There's only so much I can do here. This isn't a race engine. I haven't got a £50,000 budget. So we're just going to run with what we got. Ball looks good. Piston feels smooth. Job's a good one. Like brand new. All of our pistons are now in. I've torqued all the bottom ends up, the main bearings. Lock tabs all done. I've put the sump back on with new gaskets. A chap commented on the last video, I timed the diesel pump drive wrong. You do want to get that notch on the diesel pump drive at 5 o'clock. But you do it at, I think it's at 24 degrees before top dead centre. So I've got to take that out and put that back in. That's a 2-second job. Engine turns lovely. Now, if you built a new engine, it's going to be a bit stiff when you try and turn it over. Not excessively stiff, but you've got all new bearings, new pistons, new rings. None of that is bedded in. The engine will want running in, as they say, once it's all back in the tractor. But we're all good to go here. I'll show you the pistons. I'll show you them now. We got 4 new pistons in the engine. Now, I don't know about you, but there is something very satisfying about seeing a freshly bored block with brand new pistons in. That could just be that I'm a sad individual, but I think it looks great. I've still got to take the timing chain cover off because I haven't done the cam bolt up, and I haven't got a seal for the front crank pulley yet. That's fitted from inside the timing chain cover, if I remember rightly. That hopefully will be with me Tuesday next week. I'm going to clean up the back plate now. The rear oil seal lives in the back plate. I've got a new one of them on the bench over there. There's also a gasket. I'm going to get this on because I'm going to put the engine back on the gearbox now, because I don't entirely trust this engine stand with my homemade bolts holding it on. So that is what I'm going to do next. Okay, I've got the engine back on the tractor. I've refitted the back plate, the flywheel, the clutch. I'm reusing the clutch. There's nothing wrong with it. It doesn't slip. Why change it? We got a new rear main seal on the crank. And now I can put the cylinder head on and stuff, which I'm going to do shortly, start putting the cylinder head back together. Now, a lot of people are going to scream at me for this, but I'm going to paint certain parts before I paint the rest of it. The tractor is a pig to move around with no front axle. And once you put the front axle on, a lot of this down here is difficult to get the paint, like, to cover everything because of all the little nooks and crannies. So I'm probably, well, not probably, definitely, I will be, once I've got to put a new front crank seal in the timing chain cover. That's all just dry fitted at the moment. I've got a new seal coming for that tomorrow, so I can finish up the front of the engine there. Then I am going to clean up the front half of the engine. This is after I put the cylinder head on, by the way. I'm going to get the cylinder head on so I don't start dropping things in the engine. But I'm going to paint the front of the engine and clean the front axle up and paint and bolt on, so I've got some front wheels. Then I'll paint the rest of it because I haven't got to worry about getting in all the little nooks and crannies with the paint. So I guess let's get on with the cylinder head. Let me show you. The cylinder head is down there on the floor. I have gone all through the cylinder head. My valve guides are excellent. My valves are all fine, which I've got here. I've got to grind them back in. I've cleaned up the face underneath. I'll probably clean that up a little bit more yet. You can check your cylinder head for true. I've got my good steel ruler now. The cylinder head is fantastic. Nothing wrong with that whatsoever. So I don't need to get that skimmed. I haven't disturbed the little combustion caps. These little fellas come out. I haven't disturbed them. I've managed to get all the injectors and heat shields out without upsetting them. I shall probably steam clean that before I grind all the valves in and bolt that on. Obviously we've got to put all the studs back in the engine block. They are not in yet. I've got the studs here. I will clean all of these up on the wire wheel, and these have all got to go in our block. Tall ones, I think the tall ones, I don't know, we got some long ones and some short ones, and they've got to go in there. We've got a new head gasket over on the bench there, so I think I'm going to get on and do the cylinder head, and then we will start on the front axle. Like I said, I'll put the seals in the front timing chain cover tomorrow. Torque the cam, retaining that up. I will leave the flywheel off for painting because I want to get all under here. I will also be taking this plate off the front of the block just to make sure that's all clean under there. I don't want oil dribbling out once we start running it. But as for our engine is all back together. New bearings, new pistons, new rings. That's all good to go. I'm confident that'll be good. So yeah, I guess we better get on and grind some valves in and whatnot. I'm gonna have to shoot up the garage and get some diesel for my steam cleaner. That has run out of diesel. So I'm gonna go and have a cup of coffee, go and get some diesel. We'll steam clean the cylinder head off, and I guess refit all the valves in that, then we can get the cylinder head on, and slowly but surely the little piles of bits are going back on the tractor. Okay, here's how I grind my valves. Chemco valve grinding paste, coarse one end, fine the other. We're only going to be using fine because there's not a lot wrong with our valve seats. But get a bit of valve grinding paste on there, pop her in the hole. You can use the stupid stick with the rubber suckers on the end and do the old hand grinding. No, I'm not doing that. I'm going to use a hand drill. Keep adding paste because it'll work it out. Paste is cheap. And that'll probably do it. My glasses have steamed up so I can't see. But I don't really need to see for this. Now what you're looking for, I'll see if I can get this on camera, but you are looking for a nice dull ring all the way around there. The wider the better. And that is your valve grounding. I'll put a bit of assembly lube on the shaft of the valve, or the stem. That is your valve stem. We'll drop that in there with a bit of lube on the stem. Then I can turn it back over. Put it on the bench so the valve can't fall out. Right, we have the little valve spring seat. That drops down over there like so. We have a valve stem seal. This stops oil going down the shaft of the valve. That pops on there. There is a little recess on the valve guide, and there is a little, like a rubber ring stuck out on the valve seal that keeps it in place. But that stops oil running down the valve stem. And then we need a spring. This engine uses 2 valve springs, one inside the other. They go on there like so. Valve cap, and then it's held in with 2 little collets. Now we need a valve compressor tool to do that, which I've got out here somewhere, I'm sure. This is the valve spring compressor I use. I have got the other type, but I don't like it. I'm getting old. But that goes on like that. The bottom locates on the face of the valve under there. And then we can wind the valve down, the spring down. I find this type of valve spring compressors much more controllable. And then you've got to drop your collets in. And that is our valve in. And one last thing to do, you want to seat the valve. I use a bit of rag to seat the valve. Just give it a tap, and that is seated. And that is one valve in. I'm going to repeat that 7 more times with the rest of the valves. Then we can put the cylinder head on the engine. So I'll get these done, and then we'll get this fitted to the block. I'll see you in a moment. Okay, we've got all 8 valves ground in. I've cleaned the face of the head up. Checked for flatness. We are dead flat. That is clean enough and good enough to go back on the engine. And I'll show you the other side. There are our 8 valves with our collets in. All been given a tap to seat them. And yeah, we'll put it back on the engine. I've got to put the studs back in quick. I'll clean them up. I'm not going to film that. That's cleaning studs up. And yeah, we'll get the head on. I can't fully bolt the head down because, well, I guess I probably could, but I'm not going to. I'm going to wait for me cam followers to arrive tomorrow so I can put it in with the push rods in place. But yeah, we'll get back and we'll bolt this in 2 seconds. Okay, I've got all my head studs back in the block. The block is all pristinely clean. There's no grease or oil apart from that fingerprint there. But that is all good to go. Get your best dirtiest rag covered in grit to wipe it all off. New head gasket. The head gasket will go on. You can put it on upside down. Don't do that though. You'll know it's right. These little horseshoes on the edge are for those pre-combustion caps. So that goes on like that. Now we drop our cylinder head on, which I've just shown you previously. I've cleaned all that up. Let me just wipe that off. Oh, I must be getting old. This feels heavy. Don't know whether you can see that. I can't. And that is our head on. Now I'm only going to put some of the bolts on for now because I want to put the push rods in before I go too far. But that's all of our valves reground, new valve seals, new head gasket. That is our head on. I guess that's probably it for today. I've got to go and do some other jobs that I should be doing. I think that's it. I've mentioned I've got a front crank seal coming tomorrow, so we can button all that up, and then we'll move on to the front axle. Thanks for watching. I know these aren't the most exciting videos, but you know, each to their own. I enjoy it. I'm getting used to talking to myself in my workshop now, I think. I see I've gone up to 54 subscribers. Thank you very much, all of you. If you've not subscribed, why not? This is unmissable stuff. This is like the World Cup. For me, it's exciting stuff. But yeah, there we go. If you haven't hit like and subscribe, please do. You don't want to miss the next video. It starts getting exciting soon. We'll get the paint out, and yeah, that's thrilling stuff. So thanks for watching.